This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to Breaking Banks Europe. Today, we bring you episode 118. And in today's episode, we'll be exploring all things customer experience, specifically the impact of COVID. We'll be looking at this from a more traditional banking perspective. I'll be joined by Natasha Kyprianides, fintech advisor, and Catherine Richards over at Tesco Bank, who looks after customer experience and design. During this episode, we'll be talking about what makes a great customer experience, how customer experience has evolved, and what are some of the long-lasting impacts on customer experience strategy that COVID has left. And we will discuss some really fantastic initiatives from incumbent banks with regards to customer experience in the reaction to COVID. So you'll hear from some of the leaders in this space. And yeah, we're really excited to bring you this episode. So yeah, I'm joined in part one of this episode with Natasha Kyprianides, fintech advisor. And yeah, I've been fortunate enough to know Natasha for quite some years. She's definitely an expert in all things customer experience and how this actually plays out in the more traditional incumbent banking institutions, as well as in the fintech space. So Natasha, welcome. It's so great to have you on Breaking Banks Europe.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, and great to be with you.
Super. And I mean, so we're 2 years kind of after COVID has started and everything, which is just crazy. So I think, now is the best point in time to really kind of look back as to what's happened from a customer experience perspective within financial services, how some of, the broader, maybe micro and macro changes that COVID has had on, customers' broader expectations. So I think now we can kind of reflect on what we've seen, maybe, and what we can expect.
Sure.
And yeah, maybe I think some exciting things we can look forward to in the world of customer experience within financial services. So Natasha, I want to start off by asking, how do you define customer experience?
Sure. So I guess many people can give their own type of definition to customer experience. And I think there's a difference between just saying customer experience and a great customer experience. But if we're just strictly defining customer experience, I would say that it's the sum of all your customers' interactions and experiences that create this holistic perception of your business and your brand, and wants them to keep coming back. So it's how you make a customer feel that wants them to want to come back and continue to do business with you. That is what I would say customer experience is. And there's a difference between that then and a great customer experience.
Okay. So what would a great customer experience, how would you define a great customer experience then?
Yeah. And again, different people can give different definitions, but I would say it needs to be personalized. Mm-hmm. It needs to be seamless, effortless, consistent across all the various channels and touch points, which should make it feel like it's truly remarkable. And yeah, that's how I would define a great customer experience.
Yeah. And I think, a lot of the times when we think about, great digital customer experiences, we think of companies like Netflix and Spotify and Amazon. And yeah, they all provide us with awesome experiences as customers, but they're not operating in a highly regulated industry such as financial services or insurance. So How do you kind of frame a good customer experience within a highly regulated industry?
Sure. So I think instead of using those restrictions that are imposed in a regulated industry as the excuse for a poor experience, perhaps it should be seen as an advantage and an opportunity. What customers actually want when dealing with products and services in the regulated space is they need guidance, they need support. So, what can make a company stand out and differentiate themselves is providing that ease of use. So, yeah, that's how I would see it in a regulated industry. So, it shouldn't be any different. It's just helping making things easier for customers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's quite interesting because, yeah, going back to your definition about kind of the sum of all the interactions between the customer and the brand, it kind of got me thinking, like, I feel like we only started to really emphasize customer experience within financial services once digital banking became the norm. But as we all know, it's not just, the digital channels that make up an experience a customer has with a brand. So why do you think that, this kind of digital way in which we engage with banks and fintechs has kind of been the catalyst for thinking about customer experience, when of course we have the branch experience, the telephone experience?
Yeah. So I think that fintechs and challenger banks, they've dramatically changed the expectations of consumers. So as you mentioned, digital banking, digital first banking, I would say. And that came through the fintechs and the challenger banks in recent years. So then that raises the bar of expectations, for traditional banks. And more specifically, if you've got a large proportion of your consumers now expecting personalized services, and as I mentioned before, all the guidance and the advice that is specific to them from their bank, and as a bank you're not able to offer that, then that puts you in a difficult position to retain the customer. And so that should be a priority. And providing those superior digital experiences are now an expectation.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really interesting because, if we think about the first generations of challenger banks, for the most part, they primarily offer like kind of glorified digital current accounts. But if we think about customers wanting guidance and personalization, I think we need to think of, their whole financial standing. So not just the current account, but lending products and savings and investments. And, traditional banks can offer all of those products, and they do offer all of those products. Yes. For kind of first generation neobanks and kind of some of the more niche banks we're seeing, they can't offer that broad set of products. So I guess are you seeing banks kind of capitalize on that and try to provide this? So if we think about a holistic customer experience across all the different channels, how are banks looking to do that across all the potential different product sets that a customer has or can take out?
Yeah, so we should be looking at it as a connected customer experience, so end to end. So from your first interaction all the way until you are being serviced at that point, so you've been onboarded and then you are being serviced as an existing customer. All of that experience needs to feel very connected through every single touch point through which you interact with the bank or the financial institution. Yeah, I think banks should capitalize, traditional banks specifically should capitalize on some of these benefits that they have and strengths of all the multiple channels, more specifically bringing in that human element. Yeah. And I think that that's still very much needed to be there. And that's a huge benefit that traditional banks still have.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I think that that fits nicely into jumping into, customer experience and what impact COVID has had. So yeah, when COVID first hit, I noticed, I mean, my hypothesis was that traditional banks were in a much better position to support customers and provide a good customer experience because they have more humans operating in their customer support center than the neobanks, which may be, bot first or, digital in-app chat first. So from your perspective, what were some of the immediate effects that COVID had on customer experience, and how did you see traditional banks versus neobanks versus fintechs dealing with those?
Sure. So one thing that we've observed is that during COVID, the customers have increased their use of digital channels throughout the pandemic. So even though before, they were being used, during the pandemic, it was probably the only way to interact with a financial institution. And then an additional element that came out through this is the need for empathy.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people found themselves in very challenging circumstances. And that need for empathy was quite prominent. Now, how do you deliver empathy through a digital experience that's extremely difficult to achieve? There are ways to do it through tone of voice and copy and everything, but still, it's not the same as an in-person interaction or any kind of human interaction. Which brings us to mentioning again those in-person and human interactions being a huge benefit for traditional banks. And more specifically, I would highlight the phone channel. I think it still ranks pretty highly as for customer service purposes, in general, especially when you have a complex type of issue that you want to resolve, you do want to reach out and phone and speak to somebody rather than chatting or using a chatbot. And artificial means of communication are not really the same, and the trust is not really equal to speaking to an actual person. So I think that the phone is not going away anytime soon, I believe.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I even start to notice within financial services and also outside of financial services, even using like WhatsApp as a, customer support channel, which I think is phenomenal because then, you allow the customer to kind of do things on their own terms. It's in a convenient channel. They can, do this on the go and everything. So I think, that's really interesting about empathy. And I think, kind of goes back to why I think, traditional banks were in a much better position because how can a bot have empathy when a customer needs perhaps, like a payment holiday or something because of COVID. So I guess can we talk a bit about payment holidays and
Sure.
how, this played out within digital and perhaps non-digital channels and how this impacted customer experience?
Sure. I mean, this was more government mandated, and not just in the UK. I've seen it in other parts of Europe in particular. And if it was government mandated, then it was regulator mandated as well with specific deadlines. And the challenge, I guess, for a traditional bank was more to meet those expectations of that deadline, which were pretty aggressive, I would say. Under different circumstances, one would have thought that, you would need a lot longer to deliver something to those expectations. But what was proven is that when there's a crisis, people come together and collaborate and make things happen in ways that they didn't even think that they could make those things happen themselves. So it was, quite impressive seeing that, how people came together and teams came together, collaborated in a phenomenal manner to just deliver and help customers, basically. So it's all about helping the customer. And that, again, brings the empathy back into this. And then, so it was, the first aspect was putting out their journeys online, so that you could apply for various types of payment holidays for all these retail, mainly lending products. But then customers needed to roll off those payment holidays. So there was additional complexity there, and helping customers make the right decision for themselves. So again, that brings us back to the ease of use and that customer experience that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, definitely. And what are some of the other impacts you've seen from COVID? So I think, because of COVID, there was a need for more empathy, more personalization, guidance and support. What else have you seen?
I can't say that we've seen something specific or something in particular. Definitely a prominent need for enhancing the digital experience further. So if this wasn't a priority for various organizations out there, and especially financial institutions, now it should be a priority. It is a core means and a core set of channels, because it's not just one channel. You got online, you got mobile, and yeah, it's just a must have at this point. But it's complemented then by your other channels. So not so much by an in-person experience at the branch, but definitely, as we spoke about earlier, the phone or some kind of method that will help you have that human interaction. And I think this was highlighted even more through this COVID crisis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like there's almost like a renewed approach to like omni-channel banking.
Yes.
And I think even if we look outside of financial services and in some sectors, which prior to COVID were, 100% physical, like you would never think that you'd be, doing kind of like guided city tours online or speaking with like a therapist online or something.
Yeah.
So I think, customers definitely have an expectation now that they should be able to do things from the comfort in their own home, which was often the case in the beginning of COVID, or, going out and doing this. So having that option, maybe I go to a branch, maybe I do it on the phone, maybe I do it on the digital channel. So do you think there's kind of a renewed focus on omni-channel banking then as a result?
Yeah, interesting that you mentioned omni-channel and that renewed focus. So omnichannel has been what I would say a buzzword over the last 5-6 years. It's great to use that word, but really how many organizations are truly offering omnichannel experiences if we really know what that is? So again, to just position that a little bit, to be able to offer an omnichannel experience, you need to have a 360 view of all your customers' data before you do anything else, right? So if you don't have that 360 view of all your customers' data, then embarking on an omnichannel strategy is just not going to, become reality. And then you need to have a consistent, again, we spoke about consistency, a consistent experience across all the various channels. So your brand needs to feel the same, not just look the same. It needs to feel that you're interacting with the same organization across each touch point. And again, omnichannel needs to feel connected. So if I go and start, let's say, applying for something and for a product through, I don't know, let's say I go into a branch and I start the application process at the branch, and then I don't complete it there and I decide to continue it on my mobile phone. I shouldn't be asked the same questions again or to provide the same data again, because I already provided that specific data, let's say, through the one channel. Then I should just be able to resume and continue from another channel. All these things are not easy to do, and they're not easy to achieve, even though there's this impression out there, I guess because of these buzzwords and the discussions. The execution of such a strategy is extremely complex, and especially in financial services. So I think that there should, it would be amazing to offer it holistically like that. But it's good to be realistic also about what it really takes to execute and deliver this.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense. It's, a lot of moving parts. And as you mentioned, until you have that, 360 view, I think that also feeds into as well offering personalized customer experiences, because you need that 360 view. You need it across products and across all channels and everything. So I think thinking about the future, I mean, I think if we look at some of the big trends and kind of buzzwords and financial services and kind of insurtech at the moment, we're seeing a lot around, buy now, pay later services. We're seeing a lot of like what I call niche banking providers. So we just, recently had an episode looking at niche banking, and we're starting to see banks for musicians, for influencers, for people with a high focus on, conscious banking, green savings. So like banks for a very kind of niche subset of customer. Also, of course, everything happening in crypto and in DeFi. How do you see traditional banks kind of keeping up? So first, the first, I guess, kind of challenge was, the neobanks, and now we have, it's multiplied. What can an incumbent bank kind of do to stay relevant?
Well, the first thing is a mindset thing, really, that you shouldn't need to do everything yourself and be all things to all people. So then it brings us into the need for partnerships or strategic partnerships to achieve that. And we've been seeing so far, big tech companies and financial institutions just investing in startups and considering that that's the only way to have this type of strategic partnership. But really, that's not the only way. So big tech companies and financial institutions can collaborate together. And that's something that we are starting now to see. So collaborating with or partnering with an established organization can deliver huge value for the customer. So the big tech company, for instance, can focus a lot on that customer experience aspect, and the financial institution can offer the financial product. And also all the knowledge and guidance around the regulatory aspects, so all the compliance that is needed, which is not so, that knowledge is not there when it comes to the big tech companies. So we're seeing a lot of, these types of partnerships. And I believe that is definitely one correct approach. And it would be interesting to see what everybody puts out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, we start to see a thing that fits nicely into, the whole concept of embedded finance.
Yes.
So I think, at the moment we see more of the like bank as a service providers, like the Rails Bank, the Solarises, partnering with big techs and non-financial institutions. And we have some kind of smaller embedded finance players like Weaver. But I mean, there's no reason why traditional banks can't also be partnering with the big techs and also with, big retailers and everything. So, I think that's definitely something that we'll be looking forward to. And
I think, again, the tricky bit here is how things happen, the internal cultures and expectations internally, that needs to match somehow, or there needs to be a good understanding of the pace, maybe, at which you can move, and really your capacity from both sides, right, to cover those expectations. So I think that's overlooked sometimes. It's great to partner initially, but those details, or they're not really details, the execution aspect is not really looked into that well until you're really into the project and you start to realize a few things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to an extent, trial and error, I guess. And,
Yes.
each partnership will be, very different. Partnering with maybe a smaller scale up fintech versus a big tech company, there'll be totally different kind of challenges. And I think, being able to stay agile and
Yes.
be, key to that.
Yeah, that's another buzzword, agile. I mean, it's a great word, and it's a great desire as well. But achieving this level of agility, again, it's not something simple. And we know about the agile methodologies and to execute and deliver. But again, when you're partnering with others and aligning, this level of agility, and it's really important to figure out those ways of working early on, so that you don't have any surprises later.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think if we look at, ING is probably the most prominent case study of, transforming to an agile way of working. And I think that took 5-6 years for ING, and started very much from the top down. So it's, easier said than done.
Yes.
So I wanted to wrap up with one final question. I guess, who do you look to for inspiration when it comes to customer experience, maybe inside of financial services and outside of financial services?
Sure. So I won't give you anything inside of financial services. I don't really look for inspiration inside of financial services, at least at the moment. Outside of financial services, you mentioned, I think earlier in the beginning, it might be a bit of a cliche, but really Spotify is the one for me. I really admire Spotify, and not just in terms of what kind of customer experience they're delivering and what we're seeing externally, but in how they're going about it. So it's their values and their company values. They place huge emphasis, on truly connected communities and inclusivity. And so if you achieve that internally, with your own employees, and you create that kind of community of inclusivity internally, then that externalizes itself, and you're able then to provide such great experiences for customers as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've been fortunate enough to do quite a bit of work with Spotify over the past, I think, 2 years now. And a lot of the work has been on internal ways of working. And I mean, once you kind of get into Spotify, you can 100% see how that community, collaboration, empathy really translates into these, phenomenal products. I mean, they have just really nailed down personalization, and even their, omni-channel experience, with car view and everything. So I agree with you on that one. Definitely my kind of inspiration for all things fantastic customer experience. So
it's all the mindset, basically. So if you can get that right, then you're able to start applying it in everything you do, and the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts with the people. 100%. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today, Natasha. It's been really great to get your perspectives on, past, present, and future with all things customer experience. And I hope our listeners will, really think about empathy and trying to create that connected experience for customers, and thinking a bit more about how you can, offer more guidance and personalization, because I think that's, I mean, if it's not there now, in a few years, it's going to have to be like an absolute hygiene factor within all things financial services. So cool. Thanks so much, Natasha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Where can our listeners find out more about you? Where can they follow you on social media?
Well, at the moment, they can follow me on LinkedIn. I think it's quite updated at the moment, so they can start by following me on LinkedIn. I don't have a personal website, so or at least I don't have one yet. So LinkedIn is the place.
Cool. Okay, great. Thanks so much, Natasha.
Thank you.
Let's talk about the future of payments. Your Breaking Payments exclusive series is here, and we are ready to showcase how fintech has deconstructed the payments industry and is rebuilding it seamlessly as an embedded experience for the client. Stay tuned for new episodes every month on Breaking Banks Europe.
and welcome back to Breaking Banks Europe. This is episode 118, and in today's episode, we are exploring customer experience, the impact of COVID, and delving a bit into what the future holds for customer experience within banking and financial services. So part two, I'm joined by Catherine Richards, Head of Customer Design at Tesco Bank, joining us from not so sunny Scotland. Thanks so much for joining us, Catherine. We really appreciate you taking the time to shed some light on your views of customer experience and some initiatives around Tesco and I guess the whole COVID factor. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. It's very frosty in Edinburgh today, but blue skies with sun.
Okay, the blue skies are all that matters. So let's jump straight in. So your primary function at Tesco Bank is looking after customer design. So it'd be interesting to get your kind of perspective on what exactly is customer experience, and do you kind of think of this from a banking and a non-banking perspective when you think about customer experience and what good may look like?
Yeah, so I think for me, when I think about customer experience, I first think about the context from which the customer is coming from. So it's highly likely that the customer is really trying to do something meaningful. And then how they subsequently experience your brand, your business, your service is really what equates to their customer experience. So I don't view CX as ours or Tesco Bank's. It's the customers ultimately. But if I were to look from a bank perspective, kind of looking towards customer experience, it's really about every touch point or interaction a customer has with your brand. So whether you're calling us to resolve a query, or you're logging into your banking to check something, or you're simply researching a product on our website. For us, these touch points that customers have with us really have to leave lasting impressions with customers. So you really want your customers to leave on a high.
Yeah. And I guess, so Tesco Bank must be in an interesting position because you can, of course, leverage the broader Tesco brand. Any kind of insights on how that plays out? Is that like a massive benefit that you think?
Yeah, so I think when we're designing or changing any of our experiences, we're always really cognizant that we are just probably one cog in the wheel with the relationship that a customer has with the wider Tesco, and understanding that not only is a customer choosing to manage financial products with us or take car insurance with us, but they probably get their petrol at Tesco, they probably go shopping at Tesco, they probably buy their kids' uniform at Tesco. So there's definitely that consideration to the wider Tesco ecosystem, I guess, when it comes to experience and knowing that you're just one element of that.
Yeah. At the same time, are you able to kind of leverage the fact that there's many other touch points that your customers will have with the brand outside of banking and in finance and insurances?
Yeah, so the good news is, we're doing a lot more with Tesco directly. We've actually just launched a joint proposition with Tesco into the market, which is really about helping customers manage their grocery money from kind of week to week. But it also provides the ability for customers to save and to collect club card points. So it's embedded into the club card proposition as well. So it's a really exciting product for us. We're only a few weeks into launch.
Oh, cool.
It's called Club Card Pay Plus. But yeah, definitely we're doing more and more with Tesco to leverage that, I guess that wider, the wider touch point of Tesco.
Yeah, that's interesting. And again, I think, you're definitely in a advantageous position, I think, as banking, kind of fintech and in general becomes more open and integrated with other industries. We're starting to see a blurring of lines of who's actually, offering financial products and services. I think with the kind of the increase of embedded banking and everything. So I think that's a good situation to be in. So I mean, how do you see the changes in customer experience within banking over the past, say, 5 years? So I guess how dramatically have you seen changes from, let's say, 2013, 14, when we started to see neobanks to before COVID? What were the key kind of trends, and what could customers expect from a banking solution?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that fintechs have definitely been, resetting expectations when it comes to customer experience, not only within banking, but beyond. Mm-hmm. I think that the advantage that they have is agility, and with that means that seamless customer experience is really highly achievable. And I think what they've done is really got laser focused on that experiential layer, whereas others are trying to improve their product. They've really tapped into that experience layer. And I think that, incumbent banks, as an example, so, they always aspire to have amazing customer experience. So even before fintechs came along, to your point, 2013, 2014, and I think things like the rise of, net promoter score, customer experience metrics, means that benchmarking of customer experience in the industry has become a norm. And this has driven a lot of innovation and agility within customer experience and within those incumbent banks. I think incumbent banks are, doing great things with the legacy technology that we all know that they have. So, it is difficult to get things out there, but I think that incumbent banks are starting to unlock a lot of that, and we're seeing more and more, superior customer experiences as a result of that. But yeah, we're always, watching around us, not only incumbent banks, but the fintechs as well, as to what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I feel that it's kind of moved, customer experience has moved past a simple buzzword within banks. Yeah. I think that, everyone's starting to take it a bit more seriously. And I think COVID has definitely been a catalyst for rethinking about how we provide excellent and almost agile customer experience. So I guess from your perspective, what have been some of the big impacts from COVID on maybe kind of customer experiences in banking in general, and also from the Tesco Bank perspective?
Yeah, so I was actually watching, I don't know if you've seen it, it's the Benedict Evans report. It's called The Great Unbundling. And I think he coined the phrase 2020, a decade in a year. And I think that probably all resonates with us. But yeah. I think it's probably difficult to focus on one greatest impact. I genuinely think how the industry has responded as a whole almost overnight was phenomenal. I think everybody coming together to help customers in this extreme and unprecedented time of worry and stress has been amazing. And when I think about Tesco Bank's own response, specifically, from payment holidays to delivering cash to vulnerable customers in their homes, and to introducing, personalized volunteer gift cards so that other people could do shopping for you. Yeah. We achieved a lot in such a short period of time, and that's really helped give customers peace of mind. I think the stress and uncertainty that customers faced during the pandemic meant they were seeking more security, more reassurance from their financial providers. So I think flexibility became really big and really key. So being able to flex your products and services in a way to meet those really emerging needs from customers. And, they needed a sense of control in a time where everything was out of control. So I think flexibility is one of the things that probably sticks sticks out for me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, you talked about before how the neobanks and the fintechs are able to provide these experiences due to agility, but it sounds like what Tesco Bank was able to offer was also a great example of agility. And I think if flexibility is kind of a core kind of ethos, then I think the agility definitely was there. I personally think that traditional banks responded to COVID much better than some of the neobanks. I think because incumbent banks have call centers as opposed to not kind of pushing the customer into bots or a live chat within the app. And I think, one of the big components around COVID was these kind of, new repayment plans, which these types of products inherently are offered more by the big banks rather than the neobanks, where it's more focused around the digital current account. So I think that the traditional banks have definitely, we're set up for success in the crazy times. What's your perspective? Do you think that traditional banks have kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Regained a good reputation from a customer experience perspective?
That's a great question. And I think if you look at it on the whole, I think every bank responded based on the specific needs of their customer base. So whether you were a traditional bank or not, I think traditional banks clearly, have a larger customer-facing workforce, to your point, call centers, maybe able to support customers a bit more on the phone and in branch, and that will have proven invaluable for some customers. I think, however, the fintechs were able to offer some really interesting and unique value in the spaces that they were playing. And I think from a Tesco Bank perspective, we made the best use of the assets we had available to us to help our customers. So I think it's really, it's not about traditional banks or fintechs doing better. I think it was about everybody doing the best that they could for their specific customer base, with the unique assets available to them. And on the whole, I think most banks played their part well, and I think everybody in the industry can be proud of how we responded.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I guess what are some of the, in terms of all the changes and this kind of new era of flexibility, what are some of the lasting changes you think have come out of COVID and the impact on customer experience?
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of fascinates me personally is the use of cash. And so the use of cash as we move forward. So COVID's impact on digitization was vast, but I'm really interested to see if that continues in the cash space, or we see a return to kind of pre-COVID use of cash. And speaking from a Tesco perspective, we've really learned that we can drive far greater pace and agility, to your point earlier, when we're all kind of focused on that single common goal for customers when they really, really need us. And I'd be interested to see how many companies ride on that wave of that agility, and take that into their kind of ways of working. And I think in terms of experience trends, we're going to continue to see an increase in online shopping. This grew significantly during COVID. We definitely know that through Tesco. And just continued use of digital solutions for us, like our gift cards. So we changed that up to digital when it was a physical thing, and payments. And, I think we just need to continue to help make our customers' money go further. And we're really focused on just continuing to develop smarter money helps for our customers, just for, everyday life.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's an interesting point for sure around, the catalyst for becoming a more cashless society. And if that will stick. In Berlin, it's notoriously known for most places don't accept cards. And then
Okay.
all of a sudden, all these places where it was like you wouldn't even think about paying with a card, all of a sudden they have like an iZettle machine or something. And it was like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
this is actually quite convenient. So, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice if it kind of stuck around. I mean, looking to some of the broader trends, maybe not related to COVID, the rise of buy now, pay later, the rise of NFTs, decentralized finance, embedded finance. What's kind of for you? What's a key trend? What's worth kind of keeping an eye on from, the customer experience perspective? Because I mean, if we think about buy now, pay later, and embedded finance in particular, I mean, this makes it so easy for customers to make a payment, to have quick access to capital. I think also from the embedded finance perspective, you now see big retailers, brands that customers really love now able to start offering a debit card, a credit card, a savings account. So what's exciting you? What do you have your eyes on?
Yeah, I mean, I think, buy now, pay later is really fascinating, and it's definitely something we're keeping an eye on. But I think for us, it's about at Tesco Bank, just, continuously trying to understand your own customers' needs and really getting to grips with what's important for customers when it comes to their money lives. And for a lot of customers, it's about getting from payday to payday and coming out on top, coming out in the black instead of the red.
Yeah.
So we're really focused on exploring and building propositions and experiences that, are uniquely Tesco, building on our brand strength, increasing customer loyalty. And I think it always has to be about doing the right thing and being genuinely helpful and providing great value. And we can compete by bringing those helps and values to life through our customer experience. A great example is Tesco Club Card prices. We've just made it really easier to get, better value by simply tapping your club card. And we've extended that from shopping in Tesco to insurance and to gift cards.
Cool.
So seamless journeys with more added value. So I think, that's kind of what we're going to be focusing on.
Nice. That's really exciting to hear. I think the whole buy now, pay later. I mean, there's so much to unpick here, really. I think it's interesting to see how this type of product has impacted the traditional credit card product. I think also, there will need to be a rise in probably better financial education advice because, maybe buy now, pay later has become a bit too popular. But I mean, I remember looking at some features in the Tesco Bank app, and there was some really kind of nice features that would make it easy for customers to make sure that they had enough money in their balance to make to cover the kind of outgoing recurring payments. And everything I've seen from Tesco Bank, it's very much like little things adding up to really help the customer stay on top of their finances. And I think being able to tap into the Tesco brand and the Tesco experiences, it makes a lot of sense.
It is about, I guess all the little helps and what do they add up and equate to. And that needs to be, that superior customer experience, basically.
Yeah. And I think, wrapping up, who do you look to for inspiration when it comes to customer experience?
So I think for me, I always think that the best way to be inspired on customer experience is simply to spend enough time observing your customers using your products and services to spot friction, to spot opportunities. So I guess I probably look to customers and to colleagues in the team. Don't get me wrong, it's great to have an awareness and track, what features are becoming hygiene in the products and markets that you're serving. But, we probably don't want to fall into the trap of being feature followers. And instead, we'd rather work with our customers to understand the value that we can create, which is important to them. I think we also, we always look outside the banking industry as well. So what are others doing to solve similar problems? So for example, we'll often look to the fitness industry. So fitness apps that track calories. What can we learn from that when we're trying to help customers track and manage their money, as an example? And I think inspiration like that helps really just feed our process, which is absolutely centered around understanding the things that customers are trying to do and the friction that they face when doing those things. And that really just helps us empower our teams to find new ways to help our customers. And I guess to my point about colleagues, there's no greater inspiration than working with a really diverse team of people to really help solve, meaningful customer problems. So I think probably customers and colleagues would be my answer.
That's amazing. I mean, I think that answer in itself is just such a good indication of real customer centricity. So rather than adding new features or products for the sake of it, really making sure that every interaction and touch point is 100% focused on your customers' needs, mitigating that friction and helping them, keep on top of their finances. And I think that's, fantastic. And I like how you mentioned, having a diverse team as well, because, your customers are diverse as well. So
absolutely.
I think, you need to understand the nuances, the pains, the needs and everything. So I think, I'm very sure that you're set up for success in all things customer experience.
Thank you.
Cool. So listeners, this wraps up episode 118, exploring customer experience and the impact of COVID. And thank you so much again to Catherine for joining us today. Really great to get the Tesco perspective and also hear about kind of, your new ethos around flexibility. And I think some really inspiring advice on how to really be customer centric. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with Fintech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.